Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. No matter what time of the day or night it is a great time to be a Gamecock. I am Tony, here with Adam. We were both raised as gentlemen, so we know it is ladies first. And still remaining in first place will be our women's Gamecock basketball team, atop the SEC, looking to be atop the country. And we have a huge matchup, a top 5 clash to get into. They are taking on the Texas Longhorns. That will serve as a bit of an appetizer, if you will, in the sports realm before the Super Bowl later into Super Bowl Sunday. But their matchup against Texas will be a 2 p.m. clash on ESPN, and this is going to be yet another time while people are getting themselves together during the day, and of course having a day full of sports on, I'm sure, in many households. I'm hoping a lot of people will be giving this attention to this game, because it should be an incredible game that is going to be filled with some emotion for sure, the potential for revenge that Texas is going to want to have after more of the egg that they laid coming up here to Colonial Life Arena. And this is just going to be another great little part of this day in the sports realm. And truly, just to continue to further that along, giving more exposure to women's basketball, where there's going to be a lot of people sitting down in front of television screens during the day. I'm looking forward to it. It is going to be great. Dawn, I'm sure, will have some of the Eagles game with the Super Bowl coming up on her mind. But, we got to be dialed in here early into this afternoon. It's going to be a grind. And this is definitely not going to be an easy game. Texas has been rolling ever since they lost to us, and this is going to be a big opportunity for a get-right game for them, and a statement win that they're going to try to have as South Carolina takes a trip down to Austin. And we're going to be taking a look at this one. Adam, what are you thinking here with some early thoughts?
Early thoughts, you did mention that it is the rematch from their loss against us a few weeks ago. I'm thinking Texas, like you said, really going to try and set the stage for the rest of their season, their regular season, and inevitable playoff run there. I don't know what they're going to do differently. You said that they laid an egg against us the first time, and that's a good way to put it, because their offensive output's been pretty solid the last few games, and just nowhere near that stinker they put up against us. I mean, just 50 points, a little out of character for them. So they're going to really have to not make the same mistakes they did. But at the same time, if the goodness, I'm stumbling over my words here. The Gamecocks have been doing things perfectly well. Their only real iffy game since that UCLA loss was that Tennessee game where it got a little dicey, and even then, still a multi-possession win. So one team has been doing everything right these last few weeks, and since that loss, Texas also doing things right, but a little closer in games that they probably wouldn't want to be close. I think I did just see that they had a very close 3-point win over, I believe it was Oklahoma. Let me see here. Yeah, close win recently, but they're really just gonna have to be on top of their game and just be perfect, because that's how you have to beat these high-end teams, is to be as perfect as you can be.
Yeah, they're going to be trying to bring their A game, and that's, of course, something that's going to be a little easier on your home court. And with a game that they have been circling all season, this is easily the biggest home game for them. You could throw normal rivalries aside, any other games throughout the season. This is, of course, just adding a little more fuel to the fire now. Earlier in the season, it was still going to be a big game regardless, no matter how you look at it. But at this point, you're having the opportunity to even up a series with a team that dispatched you relatively easy and also held your leading scorer in check throughout most of the game, stifled you in the paint, and that's, of course, more of what Texas needs to have. A lot of their bread and butter and scoring comes down low around the basket, especially with Madison Booker, but just she wasn't able to get that scoring. She wasn't able to get it together. And, whether it was a little bit more of just South Carolina's stifling defense and the pressure, the energy of the game, the crowd noise, everything was going wrong for Texas in that game. And I easily can respect them as a team. They are a very, very good team. And their only 2 losses are to us, all right? And then they have a road loss when they played against Notre Dame, who's, another really good top 10 program. So those are your only two marks that come with a loss this season. And that just goes to show that Texas has the potential to have that extra gear. They just weren't able to find it when they came to Columbia the last time. Now they definitely could this time. It just with that extra added motivation, not wanting to be embarrassed again. You're in front of your home crowd. And if you have a few other things go your way, perhaps South Carolina has a little bit of a slow start. There's a multitude of things that could happen in a big matchup like this. So we're going to see how that all plays a factor. But also, just looking back into recent memory, Adam, you already said it. We've been rolling along. South Carolina hasn't seen any hiccups along the way as of recent. They rolled over Georgia, rolled over Auburn, had the nice jersey retirement ceremony for Asia Wilson. So all great vibes, everything continuing to roll along nice and smoothly in the world for South Carolina women's basketball. It's just a matter of continuing to do what you've been doing and also just continuing to go over that production standpoint where we can still keep looking back where we don't have Watkins and we just need to keep up more of this longevity throughout the season. But it just still hasn't been that big of a factor because yet again, we could just keep looking to our bench where you have so much talent. You have a good chunk of your scoring. You've got all Americans on that bench. And it's just something that continues to be able to keep your team, to have fresh legs as you just go down these stretches. You're playing these really good teams, and you're just continuing to churn your way towards March. The only main thing is going to be that you don't have the home crowd to back you up this time in a game of this magnitude. We'll see if that gets to them, and if they're able to, be able to take the reins early and score and not really struggle to get their footing. I'm confident that they're not going to replicate exactly what they did at Texas before, but they could still have that capacity to get a double-digit win. But a slow start, it could make it a little bit of an uphill battle here, so that's going to be something to watch as we keep our eyes on this big nationally televised game.
Yeah, and I know we talk about it a lot, but it's really nice to see the way the points have been spread out across this team. I mean, I was just looking at the last few games, and it's most of the time it's Joyce Edwards or Full Wiley with the most, but it's never more than, once in a while it's an 18-point game, but you'll see like the 11 and 13-point games that are the leading scores, and it's just points being spread out so well. So it's a full team effort, and they've just been doing that so well to the best teams in the country. And I don't see any reason why it would slow down against Texas in this rematch. But I think the crowd noise or the crowd is going to be the deciding factor. But it could be a lack of crowd because I think that Colonial Life really got into the Longhorns' head last time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So now not having to deal with that, of course, being in your own court, gonna really, I think, level the playing field. But like you said, I think it will still be a 10-point, possibly more than that, victory over the Longhorns. But I wouldn't be surprised if you said, like some mistakes or just the shots not landing. This could be a much tougher game.
It definitely has the capacity to be. So this is just going to be something where you need to make sure you're just not having that slow start. You need to make sure you're making good shots, that you're continuing to move the ball around, that you are continuing to run plays, and just not just taking those more low percentage, just trying to roll the ball off your hand, trying to, get to the backboard, but hitting the rim or the bottom of the rim, because that's just how you lead to bad transition opportunities. That's how you could lead to sloppy play, how you can, be a little bit careless and have turnovers. And that's just going to be the big thing for South Carolina to avoid. Nothing to give Texas more momentum or to give them that hope early. Because then if you dig yourself a little bit of a hole early, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult. And, this is a big game on a day where a lot of people are going to have sports on their mind. It is a perfect time of the afternoon between any, of course, early starts for people or religious services or brunch, any Super Bowl parties later, could squeeze it right in there. So I'm sure that they're going to have their arena packed down in Austin for a lot of these folks that, love to support their women's basketball program, as they have been a pretty, a historically good program as of recent, and that's what we're going to see. It is a great afternoon matinee as we continue to make our way there, and it's still going to be the same thing. The best recipe to be able to win this game is if you can control Madison Booker down in the paint, if you can continue to stifle her again, and also also their senior forward, Taylor Jones. If you can really shut down Madison Booker and Taylor Jones, they just don't have the scoring capacity otherwise. They don't have that potential for more of these bench players to really just gouge you for points. They haven't been able to do it all season. They focused a little bit more of their output on their starters. So that's of course what you have to key in on. There's still some random outliers. It doesn't mean that one random player off the bench can't just go off and happen to make a lot of points. Crazy things happen in sports. Sometimes you have unlikely heroes, but that's the main word. Unlikely. It doesn't happen all the time, and odds would be in South Carolina's favor that it's not going to happen as long as they continue to bear down and really just hold their own, especially in the paint, because then you're going to force Texas to really need to hit those mid-range and three-point jumpers, and that's just usually not what they do all the time to win these games. So we'll see if they can keep that containment of the paint, and again, that is what they need to do to keep that crowd quiet and to try and bring another victory back to Columbia, and that's what I'll be looking for.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've noticed over the past few games is that they're just become, I don't know if it's become or they have started really focusing on it, but they are making turnovers. And they just keep taking the ball away, be it on rebounds. Chloe Kitts especially has been getting her hands on the ball a lot.
Oh, yeah, good this year.
And it seems like they make one or two turnovers, like they force one or two turnovers, and then it just starts getting in the opponent's heads, and it just keeps happening. I don't have the stats available, but I would imagine they have a great turnover differential right now. Just in this SEC run that they've had so far, it seems like they are just ripping the ball out of the other team's hands.
It's been incredible the way that they've been able to have this active defense, and it's just played into how well they've done this season. Just going over some of these closer games, they'd be able to win them even more if they were able to just keep up this output and not try to coast at times. I definitely think being up in some of these games, you've easily seen them try to coast a little bit more at the end or take their foot off the gas, where you could easily have more of an impressive win. You referenced it before, that close game against Tennessee. It did not need to be that close. Tennessee's a great team, but that should have been a double-digit win. They really took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter. They let them score a good amount of points in bunches, and what could have been more of a 13, 14-point win or so ended up being, closer to 6, 7. Didn't need to be, but it's just a matter of, okay, yep, all right, ladies, we got this. We're good. Maybe we could let them score a little bit. Just let the clock run down. Let's hold on to the ball a little bit. But, whatever recipe works, I guess it's tough to criticize when you only have one loss on the season. So as long as you're getting the wins, it doesn't really matter, especially as we're getting closer to the postseason. And with this game in particular, for my personal prediction, what we thought prior going into the last matchup, which I still think is a bit of an outlier just because of how well we played on defense. I think what we thought in terms of our prediction with that game might be more applicable to this game. And that was that it was going to be a bit more of a dogfight, that South Carolina was going to win by a single digit, more of a 6-7 point margin, just because I think that Texas is going to give them all that they can handle. They have that chip on their shoulder. They're going to want their revenge. And if they can come out to a good start, knock down a few shots, then they'll be able to keep it close throughout this game, which I think definitely – this was the one I thought had the potential to be their first SEC loss. This is the one I was looking at. And when we did the season preview earlier in our podcast, this is the one I picked. But just the way we've been playing, rolling along, I'm fine changing my decision in the other direction a bit. And for this game, I would like to say a tight one. I think, again, Texas is going to give them all they can handle. But I would say still not going to be a buzzer-beater victory. I think they could get this one and get out of Austin by around 6 points is what I would like to see from them. Could be more, but that's what I'm going to go with for this one.
I am feeling, just based off the last time they played and the way they've been playing down the stretch, I mentioned earlier that Texas had that really close game. It was Ole Miss. It wasn't Oklahoma. They had a 3-point win over Ole Miss, and that really, really tested them there. And I feel like that could help, put a little unease in them, knowing that they did have a very close game against an unranked opponent. And we had our close game against Tennessee, but for the most part, they have just been reeling off these wins. And I think that South Carolina, even with the crowd, Like you said, it's going to be a little closer to what we expected out of that first one, but as long as they don't take their foot off the gas, I mean, it is really, really tough to, once you're in that mentality of, okay, we can win, let's just coast, kill the clock, it is really hard to get back into that mindset of, okay, this is a game again, we got to go. And it takes a while to get back up to game speed in that situation. So if we can just take these ranked games, especially these divisional games, take these with a different approach as opposed to when you're playing out of conference, and just keep scoring. And then when it's very evident the game is put away, like if there's 2 minutes left and you're up 20, it's like, okay, now we can, kind of run around with the ball, try to just get out of here.
Yeah, a little more reasonable when it isn't single digits.
Yeah, but if it's like a 10-point game at that point, you still need to be taking care of the ball, trying to get points, and just make it that much easier. I think it's going to be a little closer, but I don't think it's going to be a nail biter at the end. I think it will be a double digit, probably about a 10-point victory.
Okay.
But I think Texas is going to fight a lot harder, but I think it's going to get away from them in the end.
It has the potential to, and it really just comes down to South Carolina keeping up that energy late and just not getting too lax. We'll see how that all plays a factor here as we go on down the road, but I do like that prediction. So I'm going to go with 6. You're going to go with 10, and that would be great either way for South Carolina to escape Austin with that win, and we'll be able to relax and then focus on the big football game, Super Bowl, tomorrow, because we are recording this the night prior to the Super Bowl. This is February 8th, the evening of on Saturday. And as we have talked about this, and just because it's just such a huge sports day, it's been something that we've been leading up to. This game is going to be, in the shadow of it a little bit. We just want to add a little bit bonus coverage to this podcast as we get past this discussion of our beloved women's basketball team and focus on this big matchup between the Eagles and the Chiefs a little bit, especially because our esteemed coach, of course, Don Staley, big Eagles fan. So why not dive into a little bit of a Super Bowl preview as a little bit of a bonus as we keep going here on the Ladies First podcast. But yeah, Adam, Super Bowl Sunday coming tomorrow. Tight line from what Vegas has seen. It's been in between 1.5 and 1 point. So just about as tight as it can get between the matchups, between the quarterback play. I've seen so much coverage this week between not just fans, but even media members as well, playing into this ref narrative with the Chiefs and how it's gone on and just how it's kind of gotten so bad this season that, more and more people have played into conspiracy theories and theories of their own. And it's just
a joke about blood sacrifices in Kansas City with how weird their games have been.
Yeah, it's been an odd season, and I understand from a fan standpoint that it's gotten very frustrating, that it's led to people doubting the league or thinking that things and money is exchanging hands behind the scenes to influence these games for the Chiefs. And it's an interesting thing. It's easy to have these theories, especially just with all the media attention and coverage that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift get, and it kind of distracts from the game a little bit. It's why a lot of people have been fed up with it. It's why the Eagles have a bit more of some fans. I did actually at my job today talked with a handful of fans, and I talked to all three of division rivals. I talked to a Washington fan, a Cowboy fan, and a Giants fan. The Giants fan was a little more reluctant on it, but they all said that they were rooting for Philly to win against the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. It's gotten, and that's, when it's gotten to that point that your division rivals are still rooting for you to win a Super Bowl, like, that your team has gotten to a point of a lot of hatred amongst general NFL fans. But here we are, the stage is set, and whether for better or for worse, this has been a very talked about Super Bowl.
I was talking with my friend a few days ago about that whole ref situation, and one thing that came up was if the refs are... So there's two possibilities with this ref thing.
Yeah.
And it is very clearly an instance of refs not rigging games, but trying to influence these outcomes. Obviously, they have these guys who are in every commercial. They want them to be the face of their sport.
Which
They
I
are
get,
marketing them.
yeah.
But at the other end is they are so bad at their job that people have to make the excuse of, oh, they're doing this intentionally to help explain it. Either way, across all sports, I believe, not just football, not just the NFL or college football, I believe all of sports has an officiating problem right now. We just saw an umpire from the MLB get fired for
that's right.
leaking his games to a friend with a sports betting account. We've had countless calls. We talk about NASCAR on our other podcast all the time. It's like every week last year we were talking about some decision that NASCAR made where it's like, what are they thinking? MLB, we mentioned that. NBA, that has been pretty rough to watch. Just the game has essentially devolved into just trying to get free throws, and it's just really made sports right now kind of difficult to get into new ground. Like I've said it a lot in the last few years where I don't really care for the NBA until it gets to playoff time, and then I'll really start watching. But the regular season is just, it feels unwatchable because it is just a lot of flopping trying to get these calls. I mean, I feel like, LeBron back in the day and what's his name? James Harden really, really pushed for those, pushed that kind of play for a little bit. But back to football, I think Kansas City is just they're an interesting team because on paper they don't look like they have been as good as in years past.
No, I would definitely say no to that.
Yeah, but they're still just somehow doing it, and it does kind of make you wonder if there are some sacrifices going on in Kansas City.
No idea,
because it's just there's times when it does feel like the officiating gets in the way, such as the game against the Bills, where maybe Josh Allen got that first down and they just gave us a poor angle or made a bad spot. But then there's also the games like the Raiders, where the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell was driving down the field and then the center just snaps the ball early and fumbles and the game's over. Or they just block a Broncos kick to win the game. It's just they get in these situations and just something goes their way. There is a big aspect of the game that a lot of people don't acknowledge, where there's of course your talent, there's the offense, defense, special teams, but the fourth aspect of the game is just luck. And it happens, we've seen it happen a lot. You can have games decided on the way a ball bounces. Some fumbles can, a guy drops the ball and it could have just bounced right out of bounds, or it can stay put on the turf and then it's now open to be recovered. So there is that aspect. The Chiefs have been incredibly lucky in certain situations. And Eagles, I don't want to take away from them. They're the exact opposite. It feels like they are earning every win. I can't really remember a game that I watched of them where it was like, oh, they probably shouldn't have won that one. But it has felt like they have earned every single win, especially in these playoffs. Just Saquon Barkley running over everybody. Running over the Commanders,
He's earned it just by himself.
He really has.
In some of these games.
He really has. He made the case for why the running back should be in the MVP conversation. I mean,
definitely.
If you want to talk about who is the most valuable team or most valuable player on a team, yeah, you can say Lamar Jackson because he's just been putting up insane numbers, like the best rushing back or the best rushing quarterback statistically of all time already. And Josh Allen, who was named MVP, was not my MVP, but neither here nor there. But again, he was making the plays. They were winning. Saquon Barkley, that Eagles team looks completely different than they did last year.
Oh my God, it's like night and day. That's the thing. I knew, just analyzing those games for the first half of the season, like there was a good handful of those Eagles definitely shouldn't have won, but they still found a way to win, even though there were definitely a lot of cracks in the armor. I wasn't really confident in our coordinators as much as I was this season. And, the running back situation, just crazy how you can infuse that kind of talent. And and just overall happiness. Someone that gels with the locker room, that still has that latent potential when not being injured, like Saquon had this season. And there you go. It could be a winning recipe, and it has been very, very different. I felt completely different the way that they were earning wins this season as opposed to last. And they decided, hey, we're not going to completely fall off a cliff, which the franchise could have, and they could have ended up falling back to some mediocrity. But they rose above. They got themselves some good coordinators. They got themselves an incredible, historical season running back here with Saquon. And, you still have all your other pieces and good defensive draft picks, 2 rookie corners that are playing at a Pro Bowl level. It's all been really, really impressive stuff that I've, been obviously as an Eagles fan happy to see pan out this season. And here they are. They've reached the big game with the opportunity to, go up against Mr. Mahomes and his crew and see what they can do.
Yeah, I don't know what this game is going to be like. Obviously, a lot of people didn't want this matchup just because tired of the Chiefs and Eagles fans don't have a great reputation. So
yeah, most people, at least from a consensus around the league, I'm sure could have got on board. I know you don't like the Bills as a Jets fan, but probably Bills and Detroit would have been America's consensus for like a best Super Bowl outcome.
Of the playoff teams that were there, I think that would have been. That way you're guaranteed a first-time Super Bowl winner.
Exactly. Great narrative.
Neither of those teams have been to the Super Bowl. Well, the Lions haven't, and then the Eagles haven't. I'm sorry, the Bills haven't been since the 90s.
Yeah.
So it has been a long time. A lot of fans watching have never seen either of those teams make it past the conference championship. But it was a little weird when you said that some division rivals were rooting for the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
They were. They told me so because I wore my jersey to work today, and I had conversations with a lot of people. But yeah, I had one division rival, each of our division rivals, that said they'd be rooting for Philly to win the Super Bowl just because they are so tired of just seeing all the coverage of the Chiefs and Mahomes and Taylor Swift and everything. They're just tired of it, and that's the thing. A lot of people are just tired of it. Even again, rivals of teams that you wouldn't normally root for in a circumstance of normal reality, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, thankfully, I am not at that level. I want the Chiefs to lose as much as anybody, but once they were put against the Bills, I was, for 24 hours, the biggest Chiefs fan on the face of the planet. I was cheering, jumping up and down, just waiting for Mahomes to win that game. And sure enough, they came out on top. So my little annual victory lap of, seeing Josh Allen upset was pretty nice. I have no idea what Josh Allen is like as a person, but as a player, I can freely hate him.
I think it's to this point, getting to the Super Bowl coverage and just all the bonus coverage that the Chiefs have gotten and the chance for a three-peat. That's just been the breaking point for a lot of fans to be like, okay, I don't care what my allegiance is. I do not want to see the Chiefs hoisting a trophy for 3 straight seasons, and it's just simply put at that.
So I had a real, I don't know how to describe the moment, but I was not happy, where I was watching TV and it was a lot of coverage, I think it was on Fox. Whoever hosts the Super Bowl or whoever's airing the Super Bowl.
It's Fox this year.
It is Fox. Sure. Yeah. So I was watching Fox and it was just nonstop football talk shows, like, Colin Cowherd, stuff like that. But one of these shows, I forget the name of it, but they had a whole segment at the end where it was like, why do people hate the Chiefs? It's like, oh, because they're jealous. Oh, because they win too much. Oh, they're winning a lot. And it was a very out of touch segment, I feel, because it felt like a bunch of Chiefs fans talking about why the Chiefs were not liked.
I wonder, was it First Things First, possibly? Does that ring a bell?
No, I don't think so.
Was it Speak?
No, it was like the Breakfast Bowl or something like that. I don't remember what it was called.
All right.
One of the guys looked familiar. He kind of looked like Jeff Bezos. But
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, it was like a bald dude. They had like a tarot card reader on there for the segment since they're in New Orleans.
Okay.
But they were talking about it. If I could find the program schedule later, I'll tell you. But I was listening to, and that just segment made me upset because it was very, like I said, very out of touch. Because they did an hour-long show, and probably about 55 minutes of coverage was talking about the Chiefs. And the only time they mentioned the Eagles was to say, "Oh, we think he's going to rush over 100 yards." So Saquon Barkley's going to run over 100 yards, and that was the extent. And then at the end, they picked the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. So I really don't get it. It is a very out of touch thing with media that they don't realize why people don't like the Chiefs is because they talk so much about the Chiefs that people are tired of hearing them. So why are you going to keep, talking about them? And then just the more you talk about the Chiefs, the more people are going to be fed up with hearing about them. And that was just something that really put into perspective that the people who are broadcasting the game really have no idea why people are upset.
No, I guess not. And that's going to be a little bit more of as we go forward, depending on what happens with this game, if they do win, if we have to see more and more of this coverage for a few months, or maybe Philly can do everyone one a favor and shake things up this season.
Just shut it down for one off season.
Shut it down for one off season. And, if that was the case, I've said this to anybody asked me, if I can see a second Super Bowl win in my, adult life, I'll be content for a long, long time. I wouldn't care if the Eagles weren't in the Super Bowl for a long while after this if they won one. And, would love to see, as a fan, I could easily get behind and support teams like Buffalo and Detroit getting their first ever.
Yeah.
I would love, I know. But just from a fan aspect, just from, being spoiled from that aspect, again, being able to see 2 Super Bowl wins, if the Eagles can notch that one in 10 years, I couldn't ask for too much more as a fan, without feeling greedy. So I'm hopeful, just from the game standpoint, without all this other noise. I think, on paper it doesn't matter, but on paper I would say just eyeballing things, I'm biased as an Eagles fan, but I've heard the same sentiment from a lot of shows that on paper the Eagles have, the better skill set of players, have a little bit more of an advantage in that sense. Kansas City hasn't done a great job against tight ends. We got a great one in Dallas Goedert. Obviously, if Saquon can let loose, that's going to be huge. And if Jalen just doesn't make some boneheaded plays and, just do what he's been doing, not turn over the ball, I don't see why Philly won't be able to hold on to this game. I know the Chiefs have just found a way to win so many of their games this season, just no matter what happened. They just found that luck factor. Philly could just give themselves an opportunity where the Chiefs can't win by just a factor of luck. That's going to be the key. And again, just when you stack things up between Hunt, who they have in the backfield, and Saquon, Juju Smith-Schuster, Xavier Worthy, some of these guys are good. They're good NFL players, but they don't have the capacity to be elite. They just somehow keep finding ways to exceed their own expectations just because they play for Kansas City. Obviously, you got Mahomes, but, as a player, you have your limitations that, again, you just keep seemingly exceeding. I can't explain it. I cannot explain how some of these guys have just found like a second gear they have playing for these teams. Like some guys that used to be, no names or, on a downward trend, past their prime. But hey, here they all are, and the Chiefs do have an above-average defense. I'll give them that. But other than that, I just still haven't been super impressed with their personnel. But you can't argue with results because they keep winning. I'm just hoping that with all the luck that they have easily had, and you cannot deny that by looking at the way they've won some games this season, if they are going to trip up, if that's not going to be the case in one game this season, I would think that the Super Bowl against a team that has been rolling like Philly would be that game you finally see the luck run out. And that's what a lot of folks want to see, and that's what I am banking on finally seeing.
So if you go like position by position, quarterback goes to the Chiefs, running back easily the Eagles, wide receiver again the Eagles, O-line the Eagles. By position, the Eagles have the better roster. But it's just like you said, they just keep finding ways to win.
It doesn't matter.
And not only do they find ways to win, they find ways to stay in it. Like there was a point last week when or 2 weeks ago when they played the Bills, where the Bills found out that the Chiefs just could not stop James Cook, and they just started running the ball and running the ball and running the ball, and then they would get to the goal line and then they would start not using James Cook, and then just these decisions by coaches like that to ignore what has worked for you, it's baffling because it happens against the Chiefs. They just try to outsmart Andy Reid, probably definitely the second greatest coach of this generation.
Yeah, you got to give him. You got to give him his flowers.
Absolutely,
Andy Reid's a good
absolutely
coach.
An all-time coach.
Yeah, give him that for sure.
And people just try to outsmart him, and it just gets in their way. Because sometimes the easiest thing is to just do what has worked. Yeah, they might expect James Cook to run up the middle, but they've been expecting James Cook to run up the middle the entire drive, and they haven't stopped it. So I think what Philly has to do is just do what has worked for them. Get Saquon the ball either on the ground or in open space, because he can do both and make plays happen each time. And, keep A.J. Brown happy, get him a few plays. Definitely let Dallas Goedert be physical, because he has been bullying defensive backs who try to tackle him.
I think he could be more of a key than people realize, at least with what I've been looking at with Kansas City's defensive strategy and how they've been able to contain tight ends. I think that people aren't talking enough about him, and he has the capacity to make some big catches.
He definitely does. And was it the 49er game, or I think it might have been against the 49ers or something, but Dallas Goedert just caught the ball and then kept stiff-arming the dude all the way to the end zone.
The Rams.
The Rams. That was the Rams game.
The Rams game, yes.
Yeah, he has just the ability. Reminds me a lot of those plays we saw from George Kittle a few years ago against the Saints, when he would just bowl people over because he was so much bigger and stronger than them. I think, like you said, he's going to be a huge factor, sort of like that performance that we got out of Zach Ertz in that first Super Bowl, that game-winning kind of Jesse James-ish catch and drop, but ruled a catch, as it should have been. I think it's going to really be on your playmakers. Like, also another thing, Jalen Hurts just got to be smart with the ball. But, if you're in a situation where it is 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, goal line situation, just don't try to overthink it. Either get it to Saquon or do the tush push, and don't get in your own head. I know a lot of fans for the Eagles were really calling for Sirianni's head last year, but I think he's done well. I think the coordinators have looked really good for the Eagles. Every position group looks like it's producing. I just don't see, in a rational sense, if they were playing anybody else, if they were playing the Bills, I think the Eagles would just go into this game and probably lead wire to wire. But it is the Chiefs, and they just find ways to stay in it and stay alive, and things just happen for them. So as much as I want to say, and as much as I will be rooting for the Eagles, I think the Chiefs are just going to do it somehow, as they always have. And it'll probably be close. They do have, like you said, the line at 1.5. I think we could see another, walk-off field goal like we saw in, 2 years ago. And that's another legacy mark for Mahomes. But, on the bright side, as a unbiased Jets fan, that is, at least if the Eagles win, great. Saquon and Jahan Dotson, their Penn State alumni, get their rings. And if Mahomes win, that's another step closer he is to me never having to hear about Tom Brady again. So even better either way.
But you still could, depending on what happens there. It's the lesser of two evils for some people, yeah. But I'm just truly banking on everything that we've seen throughout this season. Both teams have the capacity for good offensive output. The Eagles' defense has been really locked down. I mentioned it before. Incredible draft with your two rookie corners holding things down back there, adding CJ, who's been incredible at safety. Zach Bond, who's been so good at linebacker position. You've seen a lot of guys just continue, and I guess maybe for Philly exceeding their own expectations in a way, which has been great on the defensive side of the ball, because Philly really needed to do that to be able to take this step this season, along with, again, adding another offensive playmaker. And they've done it, and they've been able to navigate throughout the season, pile up their own amount of wins, and luckily do some of that in impressive fashion, where they have not needed luck to win a lot of these games. They've blown out more teams during the course of the regular season than the Chiefs have. Some of those games haven't been close, some of the games were close. But it just really is going to come down to, who's going to make that mistake, who is going to be the one to turn the ball over. And, I know Philly has been pretty good punching the ball out. They've forced turnovers in all these playoff games. That's been key. Each game they've played down the stretch, they've been able to force the other team into a negative turnover margin. So if they could just get back there to Mahomes, if they could just be game wreckers, just impose their will, just try to really force the Chiefs' hand, that is going to be big. And just from what I've been seeing, how things have been culminating to this game, Philly's healthy on the defensive line, which is incredible. To have more of that health now and have 2 weeks to prepare for this game, that's going to be huge. And I really do think that could push them to the point of it still being likely a close victory, but perhaps getting to a point of down the stretch where they can have a lead, maybe even a 2-score lead. The Chiefs perhaps score, but just straight up run out of time. And that's what I would be hoping is the outcome of this game. Essentially, the Chiefs and be having the opportunity to score, but just straight up running out of time, and maybe it being somewhere from a 3, 4, 5, or 6 point loss, something in that range. But that's probably what I would say from this one. Again, some of the personnel matches up better, but I want to, in my heart, go with Philly and hope that because they're better on paper that they can prove it. They can show up and they can bring another title back to Philly and stop the three-peat. That's what I'm gonna go with, obviously.
Yeah, I think a big factor in this game, because I mentioned a lot of them for the Eagles. I think what the performance is of Travis Kelce is going to be a huge one.
Of course.
Last year he looked like he was showing his age in the regular season, and then the playoffs came and he started making plays. This year, Kelce has just never really got going. He has not been the tight end that we were used to the last few years.
He's 35 now? 34?
I think 35, 34.
Mid-30s?
Yeah, something like that. It's definitely mid-30s. But he very clearly age is getting to him. And it's going to come down to what these 35?
Yeah, 35.
It's going to come down to what the receivers can do for the Chiefs. They have Juju, as you said. Xavier Worthy, a young, very talented player, so I would watch for some jet sweeps there, just getting the ball to him in open space, just letting him make plays. And, of course, DeAndre Hopkins looking for his Super Bowl ring.
Him too,
which
yeah.
is,
he's obviously past his prime, but he's been able to find whatever juice is just somehow still rattling around in the tank, holding on there for the Chiefs. So that's another little storyline to plug in there.
Yeah, there's just so many going into this Super Bowl. I don't imagine it'll be as high scoring as last time. A lot of people get caught up on that last holding call that ended the game, essentially.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And I think it's a shame that one, in my opinion, it was holding, but in that situation, it is really lame to call it.
They weren't calling it.
They were not.
They
were letting
it then.
Yeah.
You call it then, and again, you gave the Chiefs the opportunity
to run out the clock.
To run out the clock and be in that spot.
Yeah.
To be so close to be able to have that game sealing opportunity.
Yeah, and it's that really offset, because if that call doesn't happen, and no matter what the Eagles do on the following possession, if they score or if they don't, that is still an all-time Super Bowl, and just no one wants to say it was because the way it ended. And I think that this one has a lot of potential to do the same thing. Eagles, very high-powered team, now able to put up points whenever they want to, seemingly, and the Chiefs just finding a way to keep it close against anybody who goes in there. And I saw a funny stat where it was I keep saying yesterday or last week, that game against the Bills, that was the first time they scored 30 points all season, and it was to go to the Super Bowl. So it's just a team that is not, on paper, is not as good as they used to be, but they just keep in games, and that's what's probably going to happen Sunday. And that's why I really can't say that the Eagles are going to win. I want them to. I'm going to be rooting for them. I'm going to have my Trace McSorley jersey in support of our little Penn Staters on that team. But I just think it's going to be a very close win, or a very close game again, and I think the Chiefs are going to inevitably come out on top. If I had to put a nice prediction in, I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as last time, but probably a pretty generic 31-28 win.
Oh, no, not generic. Chiefs win. I know.
I think they're just going to get it done. And just because it would be funny, don't score 30 points all year and then 30 points in back-to-back games to go to and then win the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. No, I wouldn't. Again, my bar is not set sky high. Again, I'm still super confident in my team. I know we can win. I know the Eagles can win in a vacuum in this game. Yeah, I'm confident in my team. But if the Chiefs were to win in that fashion, who would be surprised?
Everyone's expecting it almost.
Yeah, everyone's expecting it for them to have like a 1, 2, 3-point win, walk-off field goal, or stupid blocked field goal, or a boneheaded turnover maybe from Philly, and the Chiefs somehow turn that into late points. Again, it would shock nobody. It would shock no one the way things have gone. So I'm just curbing my expectation with that. But again, I'm still just confident the way that Philly has been playing. And again, trying to think about the game in a vacuum without all that outside noise, which is why I think that we can overcome that and claim a 4 to 6 point victory for ourselves. So I'm still going to stick out with that. Obviously, you got your prediction in there, and either way you slice it, I'm hopeful for an incredible Super Bowl 59 down in Louisiana.
Do you have any wild predictions for the game? Any, not just a score or winner, but like a weird touchdown, a weird moment, anything you could see happening?
Maybe not super weird, but and I'm not sure if it's going to matter because Gainwell's coming back. And this is funny, just with being moving here and becoming a South Carolina fan, and still giving flowers to a former Clemson player. But as we're going through the motions here, and as we're continuing to see things and seeing things play out, I love to see younger players being able to rise above. All right, and going back to the last game, I just wanted to pull up the stats here because I can't remember how long the run was. So hold on a second. I just want to go back here. But as I discussed before, when you draft really good talent, whether it's the first, second, 6th or 7th round, and pans out for you, you could be confident in your GM. That's huge, and that's something that I've been really confident in Howie Roseman with, the way that he's been able to build up this Philly team with just young talent. Like, they've been good. They've been solid, between the defensive and offensive side of the ball. But as we go to this, and this is going to be, I guess, I wouldn't say off-the-wall prediction, but this will be my bold prediction of the day. And it will be, he had 77 yards with a 57-yard run for Mr. Will Shipley, the former Clemson Tiger. We'll forget about that, though. He's an Eagle now. It's okay. My prediction will be in their hopeful winning effort that one of the touchdowns will be going to the young rookie, and that he might get some touches and a little bit of a chance just with that spark at the end. I think he has some really bubbling, under talent, being the third running back on the depth chart. And I do hope they give him a little bit of a look there, because anytime he's gone in, I know preseason games don't really matter, but anytime he's seen action, he's been able to bust some good runs. He's kind of, I don't know how the best to describe him, but it was kind of like miniature McCaffrey-esque. Obviously, again, he's got a long way to go to have any kind of discussions like that, especially being a third-string running back. But I'll go with a Will Shipley touchdown as my bold prediction for the game. He just happens to get some touches, and as unexpected, the Chiefs might be to see him out there. He happens to find his way to the end zone. How about you, my friend?
So I'm going to go not so broad. I'm going super specific, just to be a true Penn State homer.
Okay.
I am thinking. Now, I said that the Chiefs are going to win, or I think the Chiefs are going to win. I do, however, think that fourth quarter go-ahead touchdown to Jahan Dotson.
Yeah. I would love to see that, man.
I think he just
how quiet he's been. That'd be great.
Yeah, if he just. I think it could happen. 4 minutes remaining, 3 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, and Jahan Dotson just vintage Penn State moment, goes up and gets the ball in coverage and finds his way to the end zone, or gets it on a fade in the end zone or something. So that my bold prediction: Jahan Dotson, late fourth quarter, go ahead touchdown.
See, it's like he has the tools to do it. He has the speed. He's got good hands. He's just hasn't just hasn't been getting as much of the ball. Hasn't been able to get that really good rapport down with Hurts. But hey, if you're gonna do it at any time of the season, if you're gonna have a memorable moment, a lasting impact, and you help a team win a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter if you only had a couple 100 yards throughout the season. That'll be your defining moment. If you can help bring a trophy, a championship trophy, to the city of Philadelphia, you'll just go down in history for that one moment. Sometimes that's all it takes, and I would love to see that from a Penn Stater. So I like that as prediction. We shall see what happens in the big game tomorrow, and also, since we switched it up from women's basketball to football. For those of you also who have found their way to our NASCAR breakdowns, we're going to be talking about a lot of things. The Daytona 500's coming up. We're going to have, right? Woo! Man, I'm excited.
Season's back already. I'm so excited.
Racing season. Baseball will be coming up. So, we'll have some things to keep us preoccupied. It's going to be tough with football season being over in the main thing. I know XFL football comes back too, which is, all right. You see sometimes recognizable faces or older NFL players find their way there. But, on the official big calendar, football will be coming to an end. But, we'll have a lot of NASCAR breakdowns and news and eventually videos coming out. We went up to Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem. We're going to have some video content and production from up in there. We got a lot of footage we still need to sift through. But a lot of things are to come here. On the Northern South Podcast Network. Of course, this is the Ladies First podcast, just with some extra bonus coverage with this one.
Very briefly, Super Bowl podcast.
Yeah, very briefly. Just some bonus coverage with it being a very special sports weekend, and the Gamecocks just happen to having their game against Texas on Super Bowl Sunday, and Dawn being an Eagles fan too. So I figured it appropriate to mix it on in. But we got a lot to come up between this podcast and our Palmetto Pit Stop podcast as well. With all that NASCAR news, updates, opinions, whether good or bad. But that'll all be coming up as we, get closer to the spring and temperatures get a little bit toastier here in South Carolina.
Very excited. Off season was long and cold as always, but it's so exciting to be back, and going to be super excited to see how many times I complain about officiating again this year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
couldn't see it, but I gave a thumbs up there.
I mean, just like any other sport, right? The complaints are still easy. I don't care if it's NASCAR, football, basketball, whatever. It's we just want to see better things. It's like, are we going to get to the point where everything could just be robotic? Is that still something we could trust as fans? Who the heck knows? I don't know if there's a right answer for everything. We just want things to be as fair as possible to make the fan experience better. So, again, I got a lot coming up. Thank you for hearing us ramble on. Appreciate y'all who have made it to the end of this podcast for the switch from basketball to football. But again, Super Bowl Sunday tomorrow. Big women's basketball game beforehand. And let's hope that our ladies can bring another win back here to Columbia from down in Austin. I am Tony. Here with Adam, this has been the Ladies First podcast, and as always, we will see you next time.